who have become a survivor. So I encourage each of you, stay abreast of your exams because early detection is key. Okay, thank you, sisters. I appreciate that. Second thing is, can you imagine it's Mother's Day. You're a preacher who usually does the lectionary. You open up and the passage is Revelation. Now think about that for a moment. You think, oh no, God, you have to have a sense of humor. How in the world are you to deal with that? So today, as we look at Revelation, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask if you've read the Left Behind series, forget you ever read it. Okay? If you have neighbors who are convinced and they're always letting you know that the end times are here, I want you to turn a deaf ear to them today. We're going to look at it more from a Methodist kind of understanding. And hopefully my intention is that we begin to see that Revelation reveals who God is and that God will be God no matter what. The context of what John is saying in Revelation is the fact that the Roman Empire is touting the fact that they are in charge of salvation. On the other hand, over here, we've got a fledgling little church that's trying to be all they can be, and they're touting that God is the only source of salvation. So there's tension going on there, needless to say. Am I getting feedback? Do y'all hear that? I guess just in my head. Okay. So John is wanting to give hope in what seems like a pretty hopeless situation. You see, there's a lot of fighting going on. As human beings, have we ever known anything but fighting? Do we still know anything but fighting? So it seems the message is appropriate that John is trying to give hope in a time when there's a lot of fighting going on. No different than today, is it? Where throughout eternity of mankind, we have determined that the only way for victory is by killing, taking over, having power over, or destroying others. And so in the midst of that, John's trying to say, wait a minute. There's a new kind of vision that's here. The resurrected Christ, the Lamb sits on the throne with God. And what God promises, you can trust in. With war, there comes suffering. With life, there comes suffering. And those of us who've been fortunate enough that we've not really suffered as much as others need to realize that that doesn't mean we won't suffer. Because life is suffering and joy. You don't get out of this world without some suffering if you allow yourself to care for someone else. With loving comes hurt, misunderstanding, and a whole multitude of other things that we could name. People disappoint us. We try to love others, and sometimes they can't accept it. There are other times we wished others loved us, and they don't know how. So John's speaking to a group of people that are going through a horrific time, and all looks hopeless. Haven't we caught ourselves in the last couple of years going to that hopeless side? The pandemic woke us up to a lot of things, to realize that we're not in control. And with that comes a whole lot of things we don't like. But John tells the story of a gathering where God's on the throne with the Lamb, and there's a whole bunch of people. In fact, multitudes of people, because John is trying to convey to those people going through suffering and fighting for what they believe in, that the fact is that heaven will come to earth. And it is coming to earth because people are willing to have their robes washed from the suffering and their human nature and turned white again, because they are still, despite all of the things they're going through, able to stand before the throne of God and say, God is our salvation. Someone described, why are they describing the robes that are washed by the blood of the Lamb? Because all those standing in that multitude have known what grace really is. It is God's grace that has brought them to the throne. It is God's grace that sustains them and gives them strength, that not only have they stood at the throne, but they have gone out into a world where they were misunderstood, and they stood for God's love. It's Mother's Day. Every one of us has an opportunity, no matter our gender or whatever persuasion, to be a mother to someone else. You see, our Mother God is a God of love. And throughout the ages, and John is advocating in his vision, for those who are willing to stand in God's love, love endures. Love strengthens love so it goes out and loves others. Love is not easy. But I want you to think for a moment, all the people that may have helped mother you in your life. Obviously, we have parents, we have teachers, we have mentors, we have youth directors, we have a multitude of men who have been mentors. Anyone who seeks to love another person genuinely, who seeks to love them in an unconditional way, is in that crowd that stands before the throne. The church has always been in tribulation. That seems to be how we operate. Tribulation from outside and tribulation from inside. But John says, hold on to the vision. That no matter what you've been through, your robe, as well as you, can be transformed. And we have been blessed throughout the ages for the saints who've gone before, for the saints who are still around us, and for the saints yet to come. That John advocates the vision of heaven coming to earth will be when all people gather before the throne and know the love of God. Thanks be to God. We are given the vision, and thanks be to God, we're asked to be part of it. Amen.